share of NGCP in the entire electric bill of our people is only 3%. 52% still in generation. 25% is in distribution. So if we are serious enough in focusing our attention and reducing the electricity in this country, let us focus on which area takes up the largest share. Dapat sa generation tayo eh. Pero ang daming problema po, Mr. Chair. I already...
And hindi po naman natin dinedepensa ang Transco. But tama po si Congressman Marcoleta.
Good afternoon. I'm Dina Dizon, Vice President of Transco. Mr. Chair, our President is currently in a board meeting right now, Transco board meeting, but he will catch up later once that finishes. So we present the aspect of the projects when it comes to transmission rate setting. May we request the Secretariat to pull up our materials, please? It's the other. This is IMA. Nakalagay kasi 4 inches. So again, good afternoon. Our presentation intends to provide insights and show the implications of the projects in transmission rate setting. Next slide, please. The transmission projects, sorry about that. The EPIRA has allowed ERC to enforce a methodology for rate setting that not only takes into account efficiencies, but also penalizes the regulated entities for inefficiencies. As a regulator, the ERC must aim to balance fair returns to the investors and at the same time ensure reasonable price of electricity for the consumers. Next slide, please. The transmission projects that are much discussed go into what is referred to as the regulatory asset base that the regulator considers in setting transmission rates. The RAB, as we call it, in fact is the primary driver of the two components of NGCP's maximum annual revenue, or the MAR. And the two are the profit component, this is in red, and the depreciation in green. In fact, for the third regulatory period final determination for NGCP, these components represented 82% of NGCP's MAR, with return on capital or the profit component as 66% and the depreciation as 16%. This being said, the proper consideration of the RAB value is essential to the whole rate determination process. Next slide, please. The objective of performance-based regulation is to ensure that only completed projects and efficient costs of ongoing projects are included in the opening RAB. The opening RAB is the reckoning point for the regulatory period, and the reason for including this only is to maintain fair and reasonable transmission rate. Allowing ongoing projects is not bad per se, since it encourages investment by the transmission network service provider. What is important, though, in the whole process to promote fairness is the reconciliation portion. Only completed projects are added to, and a reasonable provision for ongoing projects are included in the opening RAB. While forecast CapEx expenditures are allowed to earn the weighted average cost of capital, the reconciliation process ensures that there are efficiency adjustments as well. Next slide, please. Here is a more detailed representation of the previous slide. The point we want to highlight here is that the projected depreciation component is based on only on existing and newly completed projects. This is a fair framework. However, Under the recent as-spent approach adopted by the majority decision of the regulator for the lapse period 2016 to 2022, the depreciation for ongoing projects, which for the most part encountered project delays, had been added to the depreciation building block for the annual revenue requirements or MAR of NGCP. Just to illustrate the point, next slide please. We want to tie in the discussion of the performance of NGCP during the fourth reg period, considering the draft determination allows the as-spent approach for the lapsed period. The figures here have been lifted from the ERC draft final determination. And NGCP completed only 75 projects out of 258, or 29% of the target, 258 projects. And in money value, this is roughly 10%. Next, NGCP completed much of the other projects within 2023 to 2024, or beyond the fourth regulatory period. There are projects with maximum delay exceeding 9 years. Similarly, 51 of 68 ongoing projects, or 75%, are also delayed, with the maximum delay again for some exceeding 9 years. With the noted delays, the ERC even filed NGCP for unjustified for these, and a total penalty of 15.8 million was imposed. Next, please. The adoption of the as-spent approach results in a higher transmission rate by 80 centavos per kilowatt hour, give or take a few. These pieces of information have been lifted from the actual draft final determination released by the ERC. So our last slide is on the potential impact of delayed transmission projects. While there is cost implication directly for the transmission charge, that is, our analysis is that for every 5 billion worth of capex, the additional amount of transmission rate is about 1/2 of 1 centavo per kilowatt hour. But there are also indirect impact, like the cost to the economy, then the allowing other alternative sources to come in, so the renewable energy integration benefits are not optimized. And then finally, the higher electricity cost here may be a result of using more expensive alternative power sources because the lines are not available to deliver the cheaper sources. So that's our presentation, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Very much. Marco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I find it a little bit difficult to understand why Transco is the one passing judgment on the performance of NGCP. I'd like to believe, Mr. Chair, it should be ERC who should be advising us on the aspects and the pertinent indicators for us to understand whether or not NGCP performed well in accordance with the role. Kasi, Mr. Chair, I think it is better for us to determine which performed better in relation to the grid performance. Nung panahon ba ng Transco o nung panahon na ng NGCP? This is more understandable for us. Lawmakers, kaya naming intindihin ito, ma'am, but I don't think you are in a position to pass judgment on the performance of NGCP. Kayo po ang may-ari niyan eh. Kayo ang may-ari. Pero sila po yung operator ngayon. But I think, and Madam ERC, kayo po ang kayo po ang merong role dito eh. But before that, Mr. Chair, I think you made the opening salvo and said that the very purpose of this hearing is for us to determine or to lower the rates of electricity in this country. If that is the primordial objective, I believe, Mr. Chair, the cost share of NGCP in the entire electric bill of our people is only 3%. 52% still in generation. 25% is in distribution. So if we are serious enough in focusing our attention and reducing the electricity in this country, let us focus on which area takes up the largest share. Dapat sa generation tayo eh. Pero ang daming problema po, Mr. Chair eh. I already pointed out this to the BOE. Noon po, ERC muna. If we wanted to reduce the electricity in this country, let me ask the ERC, bakit hanggang ngayon po wala kayong regulations on aggregation? Bakit yun ating pong ARCOA hindi nyo pinatutupad? This is where we can reduce our electricity. Retail competition and open access is a provision in EPIRA that we have not seriously considered. Ilan po yung nag-migrate from the captive market of Meralco? Ilan po kaya? Napakalaki po ng relation nito, Mr. Chair. If we are really serious to lower the electricity in this country, kailangan po nating i-implement po yung EPIRA. Nandun po yung sinasabing retail competition and open access. So, alam po ba ninyo kung ilan ang nakaka-graduate or migrate from the captive market of Meralco para contestable market na sila? Wala naman kayong report eh. What about aggregation? There are no rules on aggregation here. Pagkatapos ni-raise po namin ang issue way noon pa, you suddenly adopted a modality you call performance-based rate. Mr. Chair, before we had EPIRA, ang ating pong modality is RORB. This is return on base rate, which is more practical because everything else is based on CAPEX. Kung ano po yung gastos ninyo, doon tayo kikita. Pero doon sa performance-based na po kung ano lang pinlano nila, hindi pa po natin napatunayan kung talagang yung plano natupad. Doon na po natin ibe-base ang singil. Kaya ang taas-taas po And we need to look into the system loss. Magkano po yung system loss? Meralco, maybe 10%. Electric cooperatives, maybe 20%. Ang taas po. Bakit hindi po ito yung unahin natin? Why are we focusing our attention on the transmission, which is only 3%?
Thank you very much, the Honorable Marcoleta.
Ito po yung gusto
Alam
ko
ko,
pong
napaganda ho ng inyong
Mr. Chairman.
posisyon at inyong mga tanong.
Mr. Chairman.
The Honorable Fernandez,
Mr. Chair.
po
In the support, Mr. Chairman.
Clarification, Mr. Chair.
Kaklaruhin lang po natin to ha. Meron pa ho isa pang presentation.
Yes,
Patapusin po natin muna yung isang presentation, then lahat ng mga nakalista,
Point of
tatawagin ko
clarification,
kayo
Mr.
para
Chairman.
maayos po yung ating presentation.
Mr. Chairman, point of
Thank you.
clarification and point of information. And hindi po naman natin dinedepensa ang Transco. But tama po si Congressman Marcoleta that we have to follow kung ano sinasabi ng ating pong EPIRA. And specifically, EPIRA law, binabanggit po yan sa Section 34F. Para po i-determine yung pong rate base, no? Transco and distribution utility, ang sinasabi, shall not be allowed to include management inefficiencies like cost of project delays. And that's the reason why Transco, binabanggit po nila yung mga delays ng mga project.
Okay.
And it is the right of the Transco na sabihin po sa atin, ano itong mga proyekto na nadidelay po. And that's the reason why sinusuportahan po ng EPIRA law under Section 34F that the management inefficiencies and cost of the project delays must be considered and must be updated by the Transco.
Thank you very
Now,
much,
Mr.
Honorable Dan
Chairman.
Fernandez.
Mr. Chair.
We will now proceed.
Mr. Chair, before we move,
With,
because you gave point of clarification kay Kong
Yeah.
Dan, so it's my time siguro.
No,
just
no, wala
just one
po.
point clarification lang, Mr. Chair.
Before,
I think I discussed already last
The
time.
Honorable President Jesus,
Mr. Chair.
patapusin po natin muna
Hindi, kasi-
yung IMAP.
Mr.
So
Chair,
that
very
I will now
important.
entertain all the questions.
Mr.
Because
very-
kung lahat magpo-point of clarification, hindi ko matatapos
Mr. Chair,
dito.
last isa lang, Mr. Chair, kasi misleading sinasabi lang delay. Pakisabi nga ako, ano ba reason ng delay? Is it all problem by the NGCP
Wait.
or ERC rin? Or
Maybe
may
that's
court
already
case?
a question. Yes, that is already a question for interpretation, and I suggest that you are already on the list, Honorable President Jesus. So now I will now recognize IMAP. IMAP, may you please prepare for your, we may now deliver your presentation. We're taking notes, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can you please, your attorney?
I'm Attorney Richard Nethercott, Mr. Chairman. This is President of the Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines, or IMO.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the honorable members of this committee. So last December 23, we were directed by this committee to prepare a study or a report on the cost impact of delayed projects. Considering the data that are in our possession, what we prepared, Mr. Chairman, is to present to the committee a comparative study of the market price impact of completed transmission line projects. So we focus on 4 completed projects of the NGCP from the last 2 years, particularly, well, actually 3 years. Now, we focused on the Mindanao Visayas Interconnection Project, or MVIP, the Mariveles Hermosa and the Hermosa San Jose transmission lines, Cebu Negros Panay Backbone, or CNP3, and the Cebu Bohol Interconnection Project, Mr. Chairman. So may we request thank you, Mr. Chairman. So next slide, please. So these are the considerations or the assumptions that we've used in this project. So the target completion dates were based on the TDP 2020-2040 submitted by NGCP, approved by the DOE. We used the actual energization date reports coming from NGCP, and we also used the average price, the actual average price based on the WSM market results. Next slide, please. Mr. Chairman, just would like to emphasize that this price that we're going to discuss are prices of electricity in the market only. Now, at the average right now, only 20% of the consumption, electricity consumed in the system comes from the market. So this is only representative of that portion. And this is only generation cost. Okay? We have identified market price drivers. So, of course, basically, at the end of the day, price is determined by the interaction between supply and demand. No, moderated maybe by transmission lines. No? So these are the price drivers. For supply, there has to be available supplies, and of course, outages has to be taken into consideration, the offer price. For demand, the economic activities and the seasonality. No? The season actually affects demand levels. Transmission lines also affect prices in terms of congestion and also outages. No? From time to time, transmission lines go into outages. So next slide, please. The first project that we have considered, Mr. Chairman, is the Mindanao Visayas Interconnection Project. So as I said, the reference is the Transmission Development Plan. It was supposed to be completed on December 2020, but the actual energization happened on May 2023. So disconnected Mindanao and Visayas. We have considered the prices, the average prices from January 2021 to April 2023. That is the period without the energization, before energization. Ito po kasi dapat na-energize 2020 per the report. So for that period, the average prices in Luzon were 6.49 for Visayas, this is 7.39, and for Mindanao, for the billing period February 2023 to April 2023. February lang po sa Mindanao because the Mindanao WSM only started in January 2023. The price before MVIP was 6.17. Now, when the MVIP was energized on May 2023, the prices from May 2023 to December 2024 with MVIP are now 5.67 in Luzon, 6.85 in the Visayas, and 4.87 in Mindanao. So yun po yung average prices. Now, we got the difference, no? Without and with. And then, meron pong table dyan which says monthly average quantity or spot quantity. Ito po yung binibili sa WESM. For Luzon, that is 618,512 megawatt hours. For Visayas, 155,643 megawatt hours. For Mindanao, it's 140,788 megawatt hours. So we multiply the price difference with this monthly average spot quantity, we get a potential price reduction. So yung price reduction po is 1.99 for Luzon, 1.77 for Visayas, 1.19 for Mindanao. But yung cumulative price reduction potentially could have been 1.2 billion in Luzon, 274 million in the Visayas, 167 million in Mindanao. Now, if we multiply that with the number of months from December 2020 to May 2023, which around 28 months, the potential cumulative price reduction for that period is 34.5 billion pesos in Luzon, 7.6 billion pesos in the Visayas, and 4.7 billion in Mindanao. Next slide, please. The next project we considered is the Mariveles, Hermosa, and Hermosa San Jose transmission lines. Now, there's a map there, Mr. Chairman, showing where these lines are going to. No? Yung isang line po was connected all the way to Tayabas. The other one went to San Jose. This line actually was instrumental in allowing the new power plants constructed in Bataan to be dispatched and transmitted. So, ang target completion date nito based on the TDP 2020-2040 is May or December 2020. The actual energization happened on April 2022. So comparing the prices, the average prices from January 21 to May 2023 without the transmission lines, and from June 2023 to December 2024 with this completed Mariveles San Jose corridor, the price difference is 1 peso and 10 centavos for Luzon. This is also only in the island of Luzon. Now, if we use the spot settlement price, that will be a difference of 1 peso and 47 centavos. And if we multiply that with the monthly average spot quantity for the period from the target completion to actual energization, the potential average monthly price reduction cumulative, no, is 923 million pesos, Mr. Chairman, or equivalent to 26.7 billion pesos for 29 months. Next slide, please. The third project we considered is the Cebu-Negros Panay or CNP interconnection project number 3. Per the TDP of 2020, no? TDP 2020-2040, the target date is December 2021. The actual energization happened on April 2024. And the computed price difference is 1 peso 19 centavos for Cebu, 1 peso 16 centavos for Negros, and 0.09, no, or 9 centavos in Panay. That was during the period when there was an N-1 contingency imposed in the Panay sub-region. However, after NGCP implemented their SIPs, no, the prices in Panay went down. So if we compare the effective spot settlement prices, the prices in Cebu, the difference is 2 pesos 65 centavos. For Negros is 2 pesos 86 centavos. And for Panay, it is 2 pesos and 42 centavos. Multiply that with the monthly average spot quantity, the potential monthly price reduction, cumulative, average in Cebu is 136.2 million, 142.42 million in Negros, and 88.8 million in Panay. For 27 months, that translates to 3.6 billion in Cebu, 3.8 billion in Negros, and 2.4 billion in Panay. Next slide, please. The next project, or the last project we considered, Mr. Chairman, for this report is the Cebu-Bohol Interconnection Project. The Cebu-Bohol, this project was targeted for completion last December 2021 based on the TDP of 2020-2040, and the actual energization happened on September 2024. The price difference, the computed price difference based on the spot settlement price is 1.24, Mr. Chairman, and multiplying that with the monthly average spot quantity of 8,964 megawatt hours, we get a potential cumulative monthly price reduction of 11 million for Bohol. For 32 months, that translates to around 354 million. Now, the observations that we have gathered from this study is that transmission lines is only one of the factors affecting price, but the most important contribution of complete and transmission projects, basically, Mr. Chairman, is the improvement of supply reliability and the potential to transmit cheaper power from available resources. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our presentation. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for your brief presentation. Since the subject matter is NGCP, today present is the President, Mr. Anthony Almeida, who we've invited several times, and in the last hearing there was a request that a subpoena be issued, but we opted to still invite him, and I would like to thank him for coming in today's hearing. Since kayo naman po ang subject matter, may we hear from you first before questions are asked.
Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon all to the congressmen who are all here. I'd like to read Mr. C's opening statement. Mr. C intended to attend today's proceeding after his pre-scheduled morning appointment with the embassy. However, he was unfortunately held up and cannot make it to Congress on time. He sends his sincere apologies, and he asked me to deliver this statement on his behalf. Mr. Chairman.
Please.
NGCP is a Filipino corporation, and we run the company as Filipinos. We bought the transmission business from the government in 2007 in an open public bidding at the cost of almost $4 billion. We did this in good faith and in accordance with the PIRA law passed by Congress. This was not a negotiated bid, but was a solicited contract subjected to public bidding. We followed the law, we followed the contract you gave us to sign, we followed the regulator. As the operator of the transmission system of the country, we are a partner of the government in the energy sector. We have undertaken to pay PISAM $3.95 billion as concession fee. We have also invested so much into improving the system, almost 400 billion pesos as of the end of 2024. We have increased the capacity of the transmission system to transmit power 865 times compared to Transco. We have taken up the government's directive to loop the entire country with the completion of the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection project. We have also finished the Cebu-Negros-Panay interconnection, the Cebu-Bohol interconnection, and the Hermosa-San Jose backbone. We are not in breach of our franchise, our concession agreement, and the Philippine Grid Code. The price the consumer pays for the transmission services have gone down significantly since Transco ran it in 2008. Our portion of the bill is only 3%, but we find the other 97% has not been subjected to the same scrutiny. On our projects and alleged delays, if there's any delay, there can be directly attributed to the delays in right-of-way procurement, the long permitting process, and most significantly, ERC's delay. We have more than 100 projects pending approval with the ERC, and these projects have waited for approval for almost 4 years on the average. The last regulatory reset conducted was for the period of 2011 and to 2015. Since then, we have not been given a revenue scheme that reflects the development needs of the transmission system. Despite no clear revenue stream and uncertain recovery, we continue to invest into the grid. We continue to build and we continue to serve our country. Even now, we are locked in discussions with the ERC, who chooses to penalize us for every little delay and refuse to acknowledge their part in the regulatory mess the energy industry finds itself in. We follow the rules you set, the contracts you drafted, and the franchise you passed into law. We have done our job. We have bent over backwards to pursue our mandate and hold our end of the concession agreement. Our SCADA system is a secure, standalone, isolated system that is not connected to any other network. It is not connected to the internet, and it cannot be remotely hacked. It is NGCP alone, through its Filipino directors and personnel, and not the Chinese, which has the control over the system operations. The Chinese do not have control over the grid. There is no proverbial single red button that can instantly turn off the grid. There are protocols that actually prevent this. NGCP's procurement of goods and services included the updated SCADA system from NARI is through a competitive selection process as required by the ERC. The State Grid Corporation of China does not exercise control over the power grid nor over NGCP. Domestic corporations Monte Oro Grid Resources Corporation and Kalakahay Power Corporation each hold 30%, or a total of 60% of the outstanding capital stock of NGCP, whereas SGCC only holds a minority share of 40%. SGCC's shareholding in NGCP is consistent with the Constitution. Moreover, during the bidding of the concession agreement, the government required the participation of financially and technically capable participants. Since the operation of the transmission business has always been monopolized by the state, only foreign participants possess the relevant with domestic and international experience and expertise to operate transmission system comparable to the Philippine transmission grid. As to why we choose to partner with SGCC, I direct this question to the former owner. He bought into the Chinese. When I bought the shares in 2010, the Chinese were already there. Similarly, the shareholders' agreement that has been the topic of so much speculation was already there when we stepped into the former owner's shoes. But I do not wish to throw stones. I also want solutions. Speaking as a businessman, we need stability, not just in the energy supply, but also in law, policy, and regulation. I strongly urge the DOE to look into the problem as a whole. The data is clear. 97% of the power interruptions from 2016 to 2013 was caused by problems in supply. We need stable, affordable baseload power. We need comprehensive aligned plan and considers the need to all sectors. We are willing to be part of the solution, but transmission should not be the solution for everyone's problems. For DOE, ERC, and Transco, NGCP, and IMOP, we should work together hand in hand to have a better energy plan. God bless us all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anthony Almeida. That was the statement of Mr. C.
Yes,
Jr.?
Mr. Chairman. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you very much. I will be asking you the first question, but before that, I'd like to acknowledge some members who have arrived. The Deputy Majority Leader, the Honorable Franz Pumarin of the 3rd District of Quezon City, the Honorable Bong Teves Jr. of DGP Party List, and of course, the hardworking Stella Luz Kimbo of the 2nd District of Marikina City. Welcome to the committee hearing. The chairperson of ERC is here also. May please raise your hand. The chairperson, the Honorable Dimolanta. Yes, ma'am. Welcome to this hearing. Na-late kayo. Yung isang hearing, hindi kayo na-late. Na-late kayo. Mukhang may meeting pa. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Almeida, for appearing before this committee, and thank you for your manifestation and the manifestation of Mr. C. That indeed you're here to solve problems. You're here to help solve these problems. And of course, a lot of questions will be asked later because of the presentation made. But I just would like to ask one question. Regardless of the percentage, because you claim it's 3%, in last week's hearing, some members have said it was 10%, effective because of the delay of transmission. Kasi alam po ninyo, ang GENCO, marami. Ang DU, marami. Pero ang grid, ang highway, iisa. Kayo lang po yan. Kaya ang focus sa inyo eh. Kasi kayo ho yung nag-iisa ron eh. Okay? At ang sinasabi nila, and I will have to, and I'm sure the Honorable President Jesus will admit in the previous hearings of all the DUs na nagre-request ho ng mga franchise renewal, ang lagi ho nilang tinuturo, NGCP. Kaya daw, because of the delay, it's not only 2%. Mas mataas ang effective rate na maapektuhan ang presyo ng kuryente. Now, pwede po ba ako magtanong? Isang tanong lang, Mr. Almeida. Andito man po kayo para magbigay ng solusyon. Paano ho natin mabababa ang kuryente sa ating bansa?
Maybe all the energy family has to work together to put the prices down. Kasi if we're 3%, we have to talk also to the 97%, Mr. Chairman. So 100% of the whole energy family should discuss and talk. Kami naman on the 3% as the highway will be here. Mr. Chairman, the most important thing here is maybe we can do energy planning as a whole. From transmission, generation, and distribution on where to put our plants para we as transmission know where to go. Hindi ho kami yung naghahabol po sa, kunwari, sa pataas, pababa, pa-left, pa-right. So that it would be also more viable and consistent also on the timeline. Because we have issues also, of course, on the right-of-ways when we pass through. And in any other businesses then po, Mr. Chairman, those are the issues. And issues on permits and everything. Although DOE has been helping us out also on our to-do list on permits. But as a whole, as an energy family, to put the price down, all the sectors has to talk together and put the 97% and the 3% has to work together and work on the price scheme on putting the price down. So, Mr. Chairman, it's a holistic plan. It's just not only as transmission.
But you will have to admit that you're part of that plan. I mean,
Yes, of course,
if you
Mr.
don't cooperate and
Yes,
the
Mr.
delays,
Chairman.
as presented earlier,
Yes.
you're only 30% compliant.
Yes.
You have a 70% backlog,
Yes.
as they presented earlier. From 250, you've only done
75? Yeah.
75. So you're like you have a backlog of around 70%.
Yeah, can I, yeah.
And
yes.
do you agree that this will cost an increase?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, we'd like to validate that number also, and we'd like to look the figures that was presented by Transco. Because as far as I'm concerned, there are a number of backlogs also on the approvals that we need. Remember, we're a regulated company, so we need also approvals on all those regulations also. Although, if it is a shortcomings of NGCP, I would admit it right now as the CEO here. But of course, I'd like to look at the numbers also and validate the numbers also. Mr. Chairman, yeah. if
So
that's
you
okay.
confirm that indeed the delays could also bring the prices up?
I haven't worked on that. Yeah, Mr. Chair?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, may I be
Yes.
recognized?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Mr.
Sagayo.
Paul Sagayo Jr.
Yes,
here
please.
From
Please.
NGCP. Thank
Sir
you.
Paul, yes.
Thank you. In the interest of fair play and due process, if I may, Mr. Chairman, this is the first time that we had been seeing all the presentation materials of Transco and IMAP. May we just be given 7 days from today to consult with our consultants, and we will submit the necessary comments. And also, Mr. Chairman, I would just want to, as our President mentioned, we are part of the energy family. And as Congressman Marcoleta mentioned, we are just 3% in the total energy bill. We want to assure this body that when we took over the transmission system, transmission charges had gone down. And before I end, I would like to inform this honorable body that Transco, PISAM, and NGCP entered into a concession agreement. Under 2.01 of the concession agreement, it is clearly provided that Transco has no regulatory powers over NGCP. Just a gentle reminder. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Sagayo.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
you have now the floor. You're the next.
Sakto.
interpelator.
I just wanted to have
Don
a...
Fernandez is recognized.
Sir, before we proceed with interpellation,
Yes.
maybe perhaps here I'd like to hear from the former president of Transco. Kasi po I understand the current Transco administration gave their point of view, but I'd also like to hear from more historical institutional
Honorable Dan
members.
Fernandez.
With the indulgence of the
It's his turn, so he will have to ask that question.
Kay
Yeah.
former Transco...
Are you yielding to the question?
Ask kay... yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Mr. Chair,
So,
go ahead. Question.
Honorable Matibag, Attorney Matibag, please respond. This is now the time of the Honorable Dan Fernandez. I'd like to remind everyone it's 5 minutes questions. Time of the question will be 5 minutes. You can go for a second round if needed, except the answer, ha? Hindi kasama answer din, ha? So 5 minutes po tayo. The Honorable Matibag.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
The
What are
Honorable
the rules of this committee in terms of there's a representative asking a question and using the time of another representative?
No, this is now, that's why I have to, I sought the permission of the Honorable Dan Fernandez. So it's now Dan Fernandez's time. So he agreed. That's also a question.
Representative
Yes.
Fernandez yielding.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Matibag.
Thank you,
Attorney
Mr.
Matibag, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, salamat po sa inyong imbitasyon at paumanhin na pangatlong beses ako naimbitahan. This is the first time that I attended this hearing. And I'm glad to be here. I'm here just a former president and now just a consumer at isa pong Pilipino. I was just listening to the report into the statement of President Almeida and the good lawyer of NGCP. I've heard that report long time ago. That's the same things that they've been saying na magtulungan tayo, magayos tayo. But let me share my experience when I was the president for 5 years. Wala po kaming pagkakataon na nakapasok at na tingnan man lamang ang mga pasilidad ng NGCP na pag-aari ng Transco. Ngayon lamang po ako nakakita na kami yung may-ari ng bahay at gusto mong tingnan kung anong ginagawa sa bahay mo, hindi kayo pwedeng pumasok. I just like to remind everyone, pinag-uusapan natin dito, presyo, 3% ba, 10% ba, ganito yung binayaran. But more than that, this is something that should be a concern of everyone, and that is the national security and the national interest of our country. Alam niyo, nag-uusap-usap tayo, West Philippine Sea, may nakita tayong mga barko ng China na malalaki. Ito po, hindi na ito kailangan pumasok pa sapagkat nandito sila sa sistema mismo natin ng ating power grid. Nanonood po ako ng hearing ninyo, pinanood ko yung replay. Sinaga ko talagang panoorin. And I was struck by the question of the good Congressman Ace Barbers, which was followed by Congresswoman Luistro about the system, the SCADA system, which was replaced by NGCP when they assume. Yung pong existing na mga ano dyan, na mga equipment is General Electric noon, tsaka ABB. Ngayon, pinalitan nila ng NARI. Hindi po kailangang itanong kung may pumasok na armado, terorista. Simple lang po ang tanong ko kay Engineer Clark. Ano ba yung NARI? Proprietary ba yan? Alam nyo ba yung source code? I will make an example para maintindihan po ng publiko. Cellphone. Lahat tayo may cellphone, di po ba? Hardware. This is Apple, iPhone. Anong software? iOS, di ba? Pag nakalimutan mo po, Mr. Chairman, yung password ng iyong cellphone, hindi ba pwede kang mag-message, forgot password, ipapaalala sa'yo? Ibig bang sabihin, yung SCADA ba na ginather, yung mga data ng ating power grid, hindi ba nakikita ng China? 3 control, walang single red button. There was already an incident na nagkaproblema ang power grid natin. It was resolved remotely. Twice already na nangyari. So ano ibig sabihin nito? Remotely pwedeng gawin. Hindi po totoo. Magaling si Engineer Clark, sa alam ko, na-research ko yung background niya yung sa mga yung mga performance doon. Pero ang tanong, do you know the source code? Proprietary yan eh. When we made the research, when we made the presentation doon sa Senado, lumabas that NARI is a state-owned company na used by a military. So nag-report kami niyan, December 2019. We were able to capture yung website nila. Yun yung pinipresent ni Congresswoman Luistro. Sabi ko, ito yung dokumentong binigay namin noon sa Senado eh. Nakita namin. Kiniklaim talaga nila na first overseas nila na paggamit na equipment at ng SCADA ang Pilipinas. Nung ni-raise namin yung issue sa Senado, February, tingnan nyo ngayon sa website ng NARI kung nandun pa, wala na. But I have the screenshot already. So more than that. Now, yung question naman noon ni Congresswoman nung nanonood ako, Kimbo, the Honorable Congresswoman Kimbo, sinasabi natin 3%. Huwag natin paginitan to. Is a yield to those position of the honorable members. But hindi po 3% lang pinag-uusapan natin dito. The presentation of IMAP was very clear. Nakita nyo yung diferensya because of the delay. But even before that, there was the study done by Butuan, the power plan of Butuan. I'm sure the good chairman knows about this. Nang diferensya, because of the delay of the project of Visayas Mindanao connection, there is a price difference of 2 pesos compared to Luzon and Visayas. Ano pong basis nito? IPIRA law. Because under the IPIRA law, the WESM, bibilin nila yung excess ng generation. Huwag po nating sisihin yung generation. Yung excess po ng generation, binibili ng WESM during peak, doon binibenta eh. Yung off-peak, binibili nila eh. Yun po yung totoo niyan. Bakit wala sa Mindanao? Dahil ang requirement is there should be an interconnection before magkaroon ng WESM sa Mindanao. Kaya yung presentation ng IMAP na bumaba because there's already interconnected. Bakit? Because under the IPIRA law, ang sabi ng IPIRA law, bibilhin nga. Ano ang nangyari sa Mindanao? Fully contracted. Yung mga excess kailangan bilhin ng electric cooperatives. So sino nagbabayad? Tayo po ng mga consumers. So may I make an appeal, Mr. Chair? Huwag na sabihin 3% lang yan. Segment lang ang NGCP. I must remind everyone, the only natural monopoly in the entire energy sector and the entire business sa Pilipinas is transmission. Napakarami po yan. Alam niyo po, naririnig ko sa news yung tinitira po kayo sa Kongreso, 777. Alam niyo, mas maganda pong sagot na 77 na pag-uusapan. Yung 7 na violation sa concession agreement ng NGCP, yung 7 po na violation ng national security ng NGCP, at yung 7 po na abuse nila as to the financial status ng government natin. Paano natamaan? Bakit nalugi tayo? Ang ganda po ng opening statement ni Mr. Almeida. Binili namin to ng per square. Pero pag binilikan po natin, it violates the IPIRA law. Because under the IPIRA law, dapat maximum value makuha mo eh. That is in the implementing rules ng IPIRA law natin eh. Hindi natin nakuha yung maximum value. Katunayan, we are losing. During the time of Transco, sinisisi natin Transco, delay, ganito, ganyan, kaya natin binigay. Doon pa rin yung delay eh.
Mr. Chair, point of clarification. My clarification is, Transco rin na nagpabid nito eh. Kayo rin, di ba?
Hindi po.
No, yes or no?
Pisam po.
Pisam, because according to the EPIRA law, a cornerstone of EPIRA law was the privatization of the Transco transferring management of the national grid to private operators who could bring efficiency, innovation, and capital investment. So, joint kayo ng Transco and Pisam who bidded this in 2007 as ito po, clear.
Tama po, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, Attorney Matibag was not part of Transco at that time.
But,
Because if I was there at that time, I will not allow it.
Yes, but let us be clear, Attorney Matibag. So, before you answer
May I
the
reclaim
question-
my time, Mr. Chairman?
Are you done with your...
Well,
Are you done?
alam nyo, hindi ho tayo matatapos kung gusto nyo.
Oo.
Meron pa po sana kung gustong idagdag.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
There is 777.
Mr. Chair.
Nila.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you
Chair.
very much, Honorable Attorney
So
Matibag.
I'll just wrap up,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Yes, I will give you 2
Mr.
minutes
Chair.
to wrap up.
Ito kasi yung
Hindi na
problema,
po.
tinawag niyo po ako rito, nananahimik na ako eh.
Okay.
Kaya nabuksan yung ganito eh. Ako po hindi nagre-represent ng taong
Okay.
bayan na po yung pinag-uusapan dito. In fact, I was a victim of mga white paper and everything during that time. Pero ngayon, wala namang maakusa sa akin ako ipagkakakitaan ko to kung ano man. So, I can speak freely. I'm speaking as a public now. I'm speaking for the Filipino people when we are singing the national anthem. Hindi tayo papayag, di ba? Huwag tayo magpapapi. Hindi na tayo kailangang sakupin. They are there in their system. Because ibinenta natin. Let me cite this. Tama po yung sinasabi nyo. I was very happy last week to find out, to read the news from Reuters. Alam nyo po ba ang ginawa ng United Kingdom? Na dati ang nagpapatakbo rin ng China yung...
Mr. Chair, I think malayo na yung ano niya, Mr. Chair eh.
Hindi po malayo
So,
yun.
because the question is direct kanina eh.
Dali lang. Dr. Sige, I asked him to wrap up. Please wrap up so we can go back to the Honorable Dan Fernandez.
Privately owned ang transmission ng UK noon. I was redeemed because noong 2017 we're already pushing na dapat government at least the systems operation. Kasi this is include national security. Hindi po ito malayo. In fact, isa pang news, tinanggal ng UK ang NARI system for the same reason that I am saying now. Kung ilalayo natin, sasabihin natin, hindi na tayo Pilipino nito. Pinagbalit na natin ng 30, para pinagbenta na natin sa pilak yung ating bansa.
Thank you very much, Attorney. Pero you will agree, Attorney Matibag, that nung nagkabentahan, Transco was also part of that sale kasama...
It was Pisam was under it.
But you were not the president.
Maybe we can ask...
Yeah, but you were not the president.
I was not the president, but
But, you know,
somebody in the
as-
room can answer it because
Yeah.
Attorney Alabanza was part of Pisam.
Okay, we will discuss that later.
Mr. Chair.
We will now give it back to the Honorable Dan Fernandez.
Mr. Chair, point of order. Point of order, Mr. Chair. And for the record, Mr. Chair, earlier when I wanted to hear from Attorney Matibag, my point, Mr. Chair, was not as to take time from the good Chairman Fernandez. This was because he is a resource person po. Nagbigay ng statement yung ating other resource persons. I just wanted that for the consideration of the committee that he be given the time. So I hope, Mr. Chair, this would not be taken against yung oras ni Mr.
No,
ni
don't
Chairman
worry,
Fernandez.
your question was short enough.
Thank you very much,
This
Mr.
doesn't
Chair.
include the answer, remember, okay?
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Chair.
but you know, it was the time of Dan Fernandez, so I had to ask the Honorable Dan if he was willing to also ask the same question you were raising para hindi ho tayo magulo kasi kailangan ho, time ho ni Dan Fernandez. The Honorable Dan Fernandez, you still have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. At don't worry, Mr. Matibag, welcome to the club. Yung mga na-experience mo, hindi lang ikaw nakaka-experience, pati ako. And going back to what you were saying a while ago, darating tayo dyan. siguro sa part 2 ng pagtatanong ko at part 3 ng pagtatanong ko, kahit abutin tayo ng madaling araw dito. But going back to what I've been discussing a while ago, Mr. Chairman, kasi meron pong administrative matter na hindi pa po tayo natatakel. So I just wanted to go back there para at least po ay malaman ko yung mga nirequest ko noong nakaraan. Because sa list po ng ating pong mga invited guests and list ng nandito po, parang hindi ko nakikita yung mga taong inimbitahan natin. Like for example, yung chairman ng NGCP, si Su Guang Chao. We invited him. Yung director, si Yao Sheng. Yung director ng Wang Li Jin, si Lin Xinhua. Asan po sila?
There's a letter.
Yes, what's the
from
letter all about?
Do you have a copy of the letter signed by Mr. Almeida for all of these directors?
So ano po reason, Mr. Almeida, kung bakit hindi sila dumating sa araw na ito?
Mr. Chair? Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Mr. Almeida, please.
Okay.
We
Mr.
have a copy of your letter.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's Chinese New Year, so they're there in Beijing right now.
Kailan po ang Chinese New Year,
On
Mr.
the
Almeida?
29th, and then they have a special meeting yata every year on January of all, yeah.
So hanggang kailan po ang Chinese New Year?
29 yata, Mr. Chair, yeah.
So-
I'm not so sure of the date
So,
because
Mr.
I
Chairman,
don't keep track on the date.
So
Yeah.
in the next hearing po natin, I'm sure na makakarating na po sila, no? Na sana po ay dumating na po sa susunod na hearing.
Yes.
And even all the resource persons that we have invited as well, like si Mr. Fernandez, saan po siya nagpunta? Sa embassy?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, yeah.
Embassy and...
Embassy lang po.
okay. Hanggang ano oras po yan?
Well, within the day, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Mr.
I hope that next time he can attend as well.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Robert
Thank you very
Cuyuto po, Mr. Almeida.
Mr.
Chairman, if I may,
Robert
I'll take-
Kiyuto has a letter. To save time, they have a letter.
Go ahead.
He has a medical certificate. So Robert Kiyuto has a medical certificate. And who else have submitted their Robert Kiyuto has the Honor Attorney Ferrer also has a letter. So all of them have letters. And of course, Mr. Pardo has a medical certificate also. So to save time, maybe we can go into the
Mr. Chairman.
discussion. The Honorable Dan Fernandez.
Mr. Chairman, okay po sa akin that they have not attended this hearing today, but I hope that in the next hearing that
We
we will
will
be...
do that.
Yeah. And before I proceed, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
mukhang nagtataas po ng kamay
Yes,
si...
Mr. Chairman. Ang point ko lang dito, Chinese New Year is January 29. So if they find this hearing very important, ano ba naman to fly back here, attend the hearing, then fly back again to China? Are they trying to avoid the hearing? January 29, Chinese New Year. Tama po ba?
Mr. Paul.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Paul, you may reply.
We confirm that the Chinese New Year is next week. But on top of the Chinese New Year, Mr. Chairman, the Chinese, our Chinese partners, their corporation has an annual meeting yesterday which they need to attend. And we would want to assure this honorable body that we are not evading attending the hearing of Congress.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that's the reason-
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to the statements of Mr. Matibag?
Paul, later, we will give you the time because it's Dan Fernandez, the Honorable Dan Fernandez.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
apologize,
yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Mr.
Please
Chair.
reserve your reply. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's the reason why I said a while ago na sana next na hearing natin makapunta na po sila. At I hope that they will consider that these hearings that we are conducting are so important regarding the franchise of NGCP. And in the last hearing as well, Mr. Chairman, we have a list of documents that we subpoenaed. At isa doon, Mr. Chairman, na hiniling po natin ay yung pong shareholders agreement of National Grid Corporation and yung pong state grid of China. ito bang State Grid of China, siya rin ba, Mr. Anthony Almeida, ang State Grid International Development Limited? Are they the same and one?
No, it's a holding company.
So iba po, holding company yung ano? Yung State Grid International Development Limited?